Good morning and welcome to another video cast from Hendy Consulting, the specialist management consulting firm to the $125 billion display industry. And today I'm doing a re-recording of one of my earlier videos around one of our standard service offerings, which is called a Display Diagnostic. And we offer these to university groups, to corporates, to startups to do a fairly swift diagnosis of what we think of their market position and chances of success. Also a discussion of value and use of their tool or their equipment or their display, and the whole idea is to provide a sort of calibrated level of interest from our point of view. And what clients tend to appreciate the most is a set of discrete next actions to take it forward. And you know, we stand on our opinion, so if we don't agree that what you have is particularly interesting, we'll also say so. And I think that really has strong use for the heads of university spin-out groups, and actually for CEOs of startups as they think about raising money and whether they want to. So we've developed over time a 9-question methodology for looking at any display-related business. And the first point is to look at the technology, be it equipment, a material, or a novel display technology, and actually say where does it fit in the total pantheon of displays. And with materials, that sometimes takes a little bit more work to work out exactly what's the best use of that specific material. The elements 2 and 3 here are then what is the value proposition in terms of the elements of that technology, but seen through the eyes of the customer. And I think that's really where an outsider third-party consultant brings real value to the table, is understanding what the display customer might appreciate. And then actually trying to put some sort of dollar value, or at least range, on the value in use of some of these things, thinking about what the benefits are, but also the switching costs. Clearly, with 20 to 30 plus players in the display industry, they all have very distinct strategies. So who would use it becomes an imperative, because you want to approach the player that has the greatest need. And then, of course, in any discussion of a piece of technology, particularly in the display space, what do you compete with? And thus the pros and cons against the incumbents are actually critically important. So then once you've got an idea of the proposition, the question is, can you get it in market? And so the next 2, 6 and 7 are about a sort of qualitative discussion of the risks and benefits of changing to a new material or a new tool. But then sometimes, and this is often for work we've done on TFT backplane or front plane discussions, you actually get into a line-by-line process flow discussion at a fairly detailed granular level, both on material cost and potentially on capital cost, to compare how process flows might come across to a display company and how incrementally they might have to invest to get into this technology. Finally, and I think where certainly heads of university spin-out groups and also sort of corporate departments might be particularly interested, is the notion of our opinion on what you should do with it. So how would I position it, and then discreetly, what would we do if we were owning this technology? And I think that's some of the greatest value that an outside professional advisor here can help bring to an understanding of what you've got. So what we're going to do is go and take apart the 9 steps here, and actually here all of these slides are actually real case examples, but they've been heavily disguised. There are no client names, some information has been changed, the situation has been changed, and this is actually 4 or 5 different examples. So there's no actual client confidential storyline that fits across all of these. But what we wanted to show is the actual use of some of these questions and the sort of outputs and questions that get asked. So the first one is always, once we've got an idea of the value proposition of the technology, and that's again seen through the user's point of view, is to then say, well, then how big of an opportunity is that? And that can be done at an area basis, a value basis, and a units basis, and basically describe how big the opportunity is that the technology would need to compete in. The next set of questions are around then really trying to be actually fairly concrete about what the value in use would be, building on the value proposition. So turn a qualitative discussion of feature benefits into some sort of numerical value, but then also who in the display industry would actually take this technology and take it on. I think from the outside it's sometimes less than clear, out of the 30 to 40 plus players, who are the right parties that you should approach and why they would be interested, and certainly that's something that we try and bring to the table. Of course, in any discussion, you need to be very clear on what the incumbent technologies are that you compete with, and then the differential benefits. And once you've got that idea, then you have to start talking about the switching economics. So what would you need to then do to understand what a display player would go through in changing from the incumbent to your technology? And as I have explained, in some cases we actually go right down to a map out of specific numbers of equipment, process flow, and hence then talk about incremental capex, trade-off with total fab capacity, all of these questions that can sometimes be answered by going right down to a detailed level. But again, that only depends on whether or not that's appropriate for each piece of technology. The final step then, as we said, and where sometimes I think we can add the most value for an outside reader, is then, well, what would we do with this technology if it were us? Would we carry on patenting around this fundamental idea? Would we take it forward? Would we spin out a startup right now? Is this a really good thing to get funded? What's our professional opinion on how attractive is the technology? And then always then, really, what would we do with it? And I think this is sometimes quite useful, is giving a perspective on, well, if we would dump this piece of display technology, what do we think that we would do with this to take it forward? So here you go. This is a recap then of a service offer that we've given a very large number of times. It can be from as little as a week for university spin out, typically at a sort of fairly high level, to several months if we go down to a much higher level of detail, including customer interviews. So it's really working with the client to decide what sort of type of scan is needed. It can be as much as a professional opinion based on a view of the technology, right down to an extremely detailed value and use type discussion that's then actually taken out to market and validated with customers. So this is really often a starting point we have into other service offerings that Hendy Consulting has. And so the high-speed diagnostic here, or the display diagnostic, the DD as I call it, then often leads into our main sort of retainer program, which is working with the general managers of spin-out businesses to bring everything that we can across the Hendy Consulting offer. And quite often that is using our network of people we know. It's on doing segment market opportunity assessments, which very often comes up. Our service offer on the development of JDAs, and hence how to structure these and how not to leave value on the table. That's something that comes up quite commonly, is we advise clients to change pricing upwards based on a perceived value perspective. And there's a whole separate video on my LinkedIn profile of our methodology for the development of JDAs. It's a 4-step process. We also sometimes provide marketing insight because I think CEOs of decent-sized businesses want to know that they're not missing something that's important, and then actually translating news stories and market moves of competitors back to what they should do about it. And so that can be part of a service offer. And certainly we've been involved quite a number of times with early stage startups actually providing a complete business plan that has often been quite successful, and then turning that round. The quality of the plan does matter, the quality of the insight does matter, in terms of taking that out to venture capital backers to try and raise money. So this was an idea to try and give you our methodology behind a 9-stage assessment of a piece of display technology. And certainly if anybody has any needs like that, I hope that they would reach out to us for such a discussion. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.